Well, because James Earl Jones is such an icon in Black America, and he came from that time period.
Mhm.
And I'm sitting there listening to a lot of these women, and then you had the biggest portion of the group was baby boomers and Gen X.
Right.
And I tied it all into, I was like, look at all my cousins across the table, all of you beautiful women with your children and your grandchildren, but you're all single.
Oh my God!
I was like, Mama. I was like,
Did you say that though?
Yes, he did. He said it.
What happened?
I did. I was like, Mama, I love you. But if you said what you said, I was like, I can roll out the stats, statistics, such and so forth. But in Black community, you'll say, prove it to me. And then I roll out the numbers, and then you'll say that don't exist because I don't like the numbers. My mom came in and basically tried to stop this entire conversation. I was like, and she was like, well, show me what you're talking about. I wrote out the video. Oh, I don't believe that. I was like, remember what I just said?
So a question I continue to see coming up again and again is why Black women aren't married, why they can't get married, why they can't seem to find good men. It's just like an ongoing conversation. And truthfully, I think one of the reasons is quite simple. They don't want to. It is not a cultural value in Black American culture, at least. And we have to be honest about this. How many of us grew up with mothers or aunts or uncles, aunties, grandmothers, whatever, women in our family or close friends, older women we looked up to, who specifically encouraged us to focus on our career, to get college, to get our money up. And then once that is settled, to maybe think about relationships. I know so many women who heard that. And so I think one major reason Black women aren't married is because they don't want to be married. It's not a cultural value. And then by the time they do start thinking about getting married, they're generally a little bit older. They may have a baby or two. And quite frankly, it just becomes a little harder to navigate the dating and mating market as you get older and as you have kids. Not to say you can't find love, you absolutely can. But at that point, you might have to sacrifice some of your standards or modify your standards. And not very many women are willing to do that. And so this is, I think, where the tension comes in when you have the naturally hypergamous nature of women that starts to kick in as they get older. And they may want men of a particular status or want men that makes a particular amount of money. But then maybe those men aren't available, or maybe those men want somebody who are younger. And then it just frankly gets more complicated. And so again, it's not to say you can't find love as you get older, you absolutely can, but there has to be the reality of this come to Jesus moment of Black women largely are not married because it's not a cultural value. We're not taught when we are young by our mothers, our grandmothers, our aunts, the women in our family, that it is a value. We aren't taught how to be wives. It's not something that is passed down to us. We are taught to be strong and independent and to get our own money, and then maybe see men as a necessity when we get older, when we have had our fun, partially just as a backup plan, right? But not as like, hey, this is a fundamental aspect of femininity, learning how to raise a family, learning how to get along with a man. That is not taught to us as Black American women. And so if that's something that we want to change, then we absolutely can, but we have to be honest about a narrative that has been going on for decades, that we don't need these men. We can do bad all by ourselves. And unfortunately, as I always say, many of us actually are doing bad by ourselves.
This is hilarious, but this is something that I have been saying for a very long time. I think Diane Williams said the same thing about serial monogamy. Black women do not want to be married. They don't. They don't want to be up under a man. They will accept a man if needed. And now that the state has stepped in and physical labor is not as necessary as it used to be, and she can outsource anything that she needs with either machinery or people, hiring contractors, she does not need a man to provide for her. Black women do not want to be married. Hell, most white women don't want to be married. And the only reason white women get married more than black women is because they're socialized to. All over the world, marriage is dying, and marriage has been dying for the last 200 years. And we are just ahead of the curve. Because if you look all over the world, guess what's happening? Marriage rates are falling. It's not a cause, it's an effect. It's an effect. And the only thing that causes women all over the world to still get married, where marriage rates are not falling, is tradition. They've been taught to, been socialized to. It's been a long-standing tradition for hundreds, sometimes thousands of years, to be married. And guess who doesn't have that tradition? As Shay Sade is saying. She's one of the few that will be honest about it. Black women do not have a tradition to be married. Husbands for black women, black men are resources. They're extra. They're extra. That's why when we were oppressed, people wonder, how come we had the least amount of money, the poorest and hardest life, that we had the longest lasting marriages? As Dr. Neal said in my previous video, the contract was for survival. Let's not get it twisted. At no time were black marriages in America ever easy. They were always contentious. And I've said for a very long time, she never really wanted to be with you. Black women have always had the dream to be Miss Ann. That's who she is. That is the myth of white womanhood. You were there for her by default. And since you couldn't go anywhere, you were a known commodity. And she felt badly and she felt destitute by being with you for the most part. Now, did she love you? Sort of. Because she was socialized with you. I think black women do love us. They just only be wives to us. Black women really hate being wives. I'm going to tell you. They hate being wives. Wives are too close to being maids. Wives are too close to being servants to them. They want to be Miss Ann to where they can hire servants. That's what they want. Now, the ones like my mother and previous generations, like my mother and her sisters, they were trained to be wives as a what? As a role. And as soon as they could get rid of that role and toss it aside, guess what they did? They tossed it aside. They don't have that role anymore. Black women are trained to have babies before getting married. Look at it. I mean, check it out. The median age, I think it's median or average age of first marriage for a black woman is like 31, 32. I think that was the last stats that I saw. The median age for them to have a first child is still 23. They believe in having babies before marriage. 7-8 years before marriage, they have a kid. And that's most of them. That's why you have a high out of wedlock birth rate. Now, before 1970, really, ish, most black women were actually shamed into getting married before having kids. Now, they might leave you and have more kids, or divorce you and have more kids. Sometimes they wouldn't even divorce you and have more kids, but they never wanted to be married to you. Even though black people didn't divorce that much, they would leave each other. It's called a walk-in divorce. So on paper, they're still married. The black women never really wanted you as a husband. They never wanted to be married. They never wanted to be submissive to you. They didn't. That had to be a role that they played for marriage. Even then, it was still contentious. So even look nowadays, guess what? The shortest marriages are what? Black women, right? 5 years. Average of 5 years. The highest divorce rates are black women. Double the rate of everybody else. The lowest marriage rate of all women in the United States is black women at 27. Half of everybody else. Black women have the most of out of wedlock birth rates, and black women have what? File for more divorces than anybody else. Not even close. It's not even close. You add that all up, what Shay Sade said was accurate. The reason black women aren't married is because they don't want to. They don't see that as a necessary part of their life. Really, brothers, they see marriage to you as a burden. So if you're going to get married to a woman, that's like when you have to have so much for her, right? You got to have so much. That's why they ask for so much, right? If I'm going to be a slave, I'm going to sell myself to a man. I'm going to get the highest rate of return I can. It's not about a lifestyle. It's not about working with you. It's not about survival. Right? It's not about being happy having a man, right? Being married, having a man. I need to get married. I need to have the highest rate possible. So basically, they look at having a man and getting him married as we're doing what? Getting a job, getting a better job. That's all it is. They see marriage as a job. They don't see marriage as a duty. They don't see marriage as a joy. They don't see marriage as a pleasure. It's a job. It's when they go on dating sites, right? Like Kendra G and even with Kevin. They're not looking for a man to get married to be happy with, to have a family with. They're looking to get hired by the highest bidder. When you hear them describe marriage or their husband, they talk as if it's a job. And the only time they're really happy with you is just like they're happy with a job, when the job basically is kissing their ass, right? They get all the perks, they get a job that they like, and they're happy with the job, just like anybody else. Most jobs you hate, but if you can do what you want and get paid for it or use it as a job, you're happy with it until you're not. Most black women see it as a job. They don't see it as a lifestyle. They don't see it as a tradition. The tradition is having a baby and being a single mother, believe it or not. Here's what it is. Black women see family as a woman and her children. Black men are extra. Black men are resources. Black men are either an employer or an employee. It's like when you see homosexuals kind of get married. Either black men is an employer or an employee when you're with a black woman. You're not a mate, you're not a partner, you're not a significant other. You're an employer or an employee. And a whole lot of black women prefer the employee. Why do you think they love the street dudes so much? Why do you think smart chicks love street dudes so much? Because they're subservient, they're easy to control. When you put him next to you, basically you look good. And they can go and complain about you to their girlfriends and talk about how dumb you are. Anyhow, that's all I got for this one. It's BGS out, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.